Shots rang out at this Little Rock shopping center shortly after 10 o'clock Monday morning. The victims, 2 U.S. Army soldiers standing outside this Army-Navy recruiting center. 23-year-old Private William Long of Conway was killed. 18-year-old Private Quinton Ezeagwula seriously injured when police say a suspect in a black SUV drove by opening fire.
I don't think it was murder, because murder is when a person kills another person without justified reason. And I thought what I did was Islamic justified, and also justifies, common sense, U.S. soldiers are killing innocent Muslim men and women, and we believe that we have to strike back.
My son was not killed for who he was. My son was killed for what he was. Quinton Ezeagwula was wounded for what he was. He was a soldier wearing his uniform who went to work that day in the heartland of his country, and they were attacked for it.
Army regulations state that each approved award of the Purple Heart must exhibit all of the following factors. Wound, injury, or death must have been the result of enemy or hostile act, international terrorist attack, or friendly fire. According to the Army statement, although the shootings of Privates Long and Ezeagwula were tragic and reprehensible, there remains insufficient evidence to demonstrate the 2 soldiers' entitlement to award the Purple Heart.
The Army has left my son on a battlefield by not recognizing this for what it is. The American government should give my son the Purple Heart because he is war dead.
The Department of Defense has taken a similar attitude toward the terrorist murders of 12 U.S. soldiers and a civilian by Major Nidal Hassan at Fort Hood in Texas. Hassan is an American-born son of Palestinian immigrants who became an Islamic radical through contact with Anwar al-Awlaki. None of the dead Fort Hood soldiers were considered to be victims of Islamic terrorism.
The enemy is the ideology, the political ideology of violent Islamist extremism. The Department of Defense is still not prepared to call the enemy what it is.
For the past 3 years, Daris has waited and fought for the Army to give his Andy the Purple Heart. The Army has so far refused.
Since my son's death, my view of things has changed. I've lain awake through my wife's nightmares when she relives being 50 feet away while Andy and Quinton were shot. It took me 2 years to get these back. These are my son's dog tags. He wore these when he took 4 rounds of 7.62 ammo from about 3 feet. On it, there's the warrior ethos. The last line of it is, "I will never leave a fallen comrade." Well, the Army left him.
In response to Daris's testimony, Congress added a provision to the 2012 Defense Authorization Bill ordering the Army to award Andy and Quinton the Purple Heart.
Your son should obviously be awarded the Purple Heart posthumously.
You can count on me in standing with my colleagues who've already spoken today in my efforts, as I will join with them for the proper recognition of your son and his service.
I don't understand why the Army has not gone ahead and offered your son the Purple Heart.
Your son and the other soldier and the soldiers at Fort Hood, we will not leave them behind in not being honored by the United States of America. I think you have a chorus of support here today.
You can change the policy of this government, I believe, and I thank you for being here today.
On May 15, 2012, the Obama administration threatened to veto the defense bill because of several provisions, including one awarding Andy and Quinton the Purple Hearts. The White House released a statement claiming that the criminal acts that occurred in Little Rock were tried by the state of Arkansas as violations of the state criminal code rather than acts of terrorism. As a result, this provision could create appellate issues.
I am convinced the government's position is to deny Little Rock as a terrorist attack by not being open, transparent, and despite promises to do so, to this administration's shame, 2 soldiers have been abandoned on the battlefield in the advancement of a political agenda.
Help Daris win the fight for Andy and Quinton's Purple Heart. Sign the petition to the Army now and go to www.losingourSons.com to learn what else you can do.
And hopefully Quinton will receive a Purple Heart, and Andy will receive hers. Andy will never wear it. But I expect my government to recognize his sacrifice for this country.